The narrative has been that for many people who get vaccinated, especially yesterday, you heard Joe Biden say the primary issue that we have here in America is we have a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And it's caused by the fact that despite America having unprecedented and successful vaccination program, despite the fact that for almost 5 months, free vaccines have been available in 80,000 different locations, we still have nearly 80 million Americans who have failed to get the shot. My message to unvaccinated Americans is this: what more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine is FDA approval. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
So we're going to look at one of New York's most vaccinated schools, Cornell University, with a vaccination rate of 95% as of August 31st. And this includes both students as well as faculty. I believe it was like 98% students. And I did this in a previous video, and about 94% of the faculty had been vaccinated. So what's going on at Cornell University? Well, this was a recent article that came out on September 6th. And it says, as Cornell reports record cases, students miss first classes, bears burden of COVID policies. This is from Cornell University. So on February, it says Jamie, 24, was forced to quarantine hours after stepping foot on Cornell campus after someone on her bus from New York City tested positive for COVID-19. She never tested positive herself, but she spent 7 days in quarantine at the Statler Hotel. It says, but on August 26th, after Jamie, who had asked to omit her last name because of mention of her personal medical history, learned the boss of her summer job tested positive. Sophomore spent 2 days trying to get a COVID test at Cornell before learning that she too had COVID-19. It says the health department basically said, since you're vaccinated, it's not urgent, Jamie said. Between the time I found out that I was contact traced and when I actually got my positive result back on Saturday night, I had no restrictions. I could have gone anywhere. And this is basically a lot of what this article is talking about in terms of the policies that have been put in place. Because the narrative is that if you take the vaccine, well, then you're not going to contract it. What was it that the FDA doctor said? 91% efficacy. Of course, depending upon when you had received the vaccine, it was upwards of 95% efficacy. And so many people believe that they took this, they were never going to get COVID. I'm getting over a cold here. It says Jamie is nearly one of 400 students who tested positive for COVID on August 26th to September 5th. They scrambled to get tested and find isolation arrangements during the first weeks of classes, isolating in bulk hall, hotels, or at home. She and hundreds of her students are now keeping up with classworks with few live classes to attend. So some students will meet their professors for the first times 3 weeks this school year. Faculty aren't required to provide remote access to those in isolation. Right? Because the narrative for many young people is, hey, you take the vaccine, you don't nothing to worry about. So the school never did anything to prepare for the fact that those who have even taken the vaccine can still contract the virus and can still pass it on. So they made no attempts to provide online or distance learning for many of these kids. And these kids are paying thousands upon thousands of dollars for these classes. So now they're basically learning on their own. They're basically forced to study on their own with no classroom or contact with their professors. It says most Cornell cases are linked to what they refer to as informal off-campus gatherings among undergraduates and the university has asked students to put off parties and wear a mask as much as possible. But again, if you're vaccinated, then what do you have to worry about other individuals who are not vaccinated? Now, of course, this is a narrative that they want to say, well, it's not, you're not getting contact because of our campus, because of the vaccine. Everybody's vaccinated, right? It must be related to you people who are going out there coming in contact with the unvaccinated. Now, of course, this makes no scientific sense, because if you take a vaccine, the whole purpose of taking a vaccine is to have antibodies when you come in contact with a specific disease, when you come in contact with a specific virus.
We're going to protect vaccinated workers from unvaccinated coworkers.
You have antibodies and your body fights it off. You should have a strong enough immune system, especially being this young, to fend it off. But many of these individuals are now testing positive post-vaccine, and this has been the trend going on in many countries. It says among undergraduates, it says cases levels are reaching record highs in Tompkins County as of Monday evening. There are 442 cases in the county. With nearly all students vaccinated, the university suspended arrival testing and reduced surveillance testing to weekly nose swabs for vaccinated students. But now some students are reporting long waits to get supplemental tests and test results, and some have been forced to navigate campus with the suspicion that they are positive for COVID. You have a whole campus of highly vaccinated young people, and many of these individuals are testing positive. This is very odd to see in a highly vaccinated group of people, regardless of whether you come in contact with unvaccinated individuals or not. These individuals should not be testing positive for COVID post-vaccine, but they are. Goes on to say that if Jamie learned she might have been exposed, she spent 2 days attending classes and gatherings with her friends. She minimized her time spent indoors and wore a mask. Right, so these are people who are doing at the very least something. Right, the narrative is that masks work, and so these people are utilizing masks when possible. This is without specific university guidelines. She was forced to calculate her own decisions while she awaited her test results. According to the university, fully vaccinated individuals do not need to quarantine after contact with someone who tests positive, unless they have symptoms. So you can see how the policies are actually leading to the spread of the virus, right? By what they're saying, that you don't have to quarantine if you come in contact with someone who's symptomatic. And as a result, it continues to spread. And because other individuals come in contact with you, they also don't have to quarantine until they start to show signs of infection. And this is how you spread a disease. This is easily how you spread a disease, by not taking the simple steps of isolating individuals or just routine hand washing. But it's so odd that for many of these young people who have very healthy immune systems, that many of these individuals are testing positive post-vaccine. It says after Jamie learned that she might have been exposed, I read that. It says it was pretty scary because I knew that I had been in contact with a lot of people. Jamie said, at a certain point, I knew I should limit my indoor use, like the mask on outside when possible. But I already had been in close contact with like 30 people. As well, Jamie said she tried to keep her distance, even avoiding crowded dining halls. She attended Trevor Wallace's performance in Bailey Hall directly before she received a call that she had tested positive. While Jamie wasn't breaking university policy when attending class and the event, she feared facing repercussions now that she had tested positive. I'm relying on the school not to only keep me from getting COVID, but also to keep me from giving it to other people. And that's odd. Again, if you are vaccinated, then why should you be worried about contact? And of course, now the narrative among many of the normies on the left is that, oh, vaccines don't prevent you from getting the disease. And I'm just like, really? That completely changed since 2019, since the whole purpose of getting a vaccine was to minimize the spread of diseases. But you can see when the science doesn't benefit the left, then they'll just utilize whatever sort of narrative to make them not look bad and to make you look like you were continually the problem. And this is why, in scenarios like this, is where strife, contention, and eventually hatred, violence, and war can break out. But that will be the solution. There will be no solution. There will be no common ground. There will be no common ground among these individuals. So Americans have to realize that the longer this goes on, the worse it will get. And eventually people will have to make a choice about how far they're willing to let the left push them. You've seen acts of violence throughout all of 2020, where even your beloved police officers would not uphold the laws of the land. They would not allow for justice to roll forth. And so it will come to a point where the American people will have to take things into their own hands. It will result in much bloodshed because the left will not stop until the right is dead. And then the left eventually kill themselves off via starvation, which is what happens in communism. Or you will be made subject to the left. Entirely up to you how you want to live. Now, the rest of the article goes on bit by bit, talking about all these different individuals who, because of policies that were either in place or policies that were just not put in place as a result, were allowed to move about the campus and, of course, spread the disease among the vaccinated people of Cornell University. Cornell University has one of the highest vaccination rates in terms of a campus in New York, and they are experiencing more cases now than when there was no vaccine. Kind of by this point, it should be rather obvious what is going on to those who have understanding.